None. Saddam Hussein was born on April 28, 1937, in the small village of Al-Awya near Tikrit in Iraq. His early life was marked by hardship and struggle. His father either died or disappeared before he was born, and his mother remarried, leaving Saddam to be raised by his uncle. This tumultuous upbringing would shape his future in profound ways. He served as the president of Iraq from 1979 to 2003. His rise to power was not sudden, but rather a calculated and strategic climb through the ranks of the Ba'ath Party, which he joined in 1957. Over the years, he became known for his ruthless tactics and unwavering ambition. Known for his authoritarian rule, Hussein established a totalitarian state with tight control over every aspect of Iraqi life. He created a vast network of security forces and intelligence agencies to monitor and suppress any dissent. His regime was characterized by a pervasive atmosphere of fear and suspicion. As the leader of the Ba'ath Party, he rose to power after an internal coup. The Ba'ath Party, with its ideology of Arab nationalism and socialism, provided the perfect platform for Saddam's ambitions. He quickly consolidated power, eliminating rivals and establishing himself as the undisputed leader. For over 2 decades, Saddam ruled Iraq with an iron fist. His regime was marked by a series of purges, executions, and brutal crackdowns on any form of opposition. He maintained a cult of personality, portraying himself as the savior of Iraq and the Arab world. His political philosophy was a mix of Arab nationalism and military dictatorship. He believed in the unification of Arab countries under a single, strong leader, and he saw himself as that leader. His vision was one of a powerful, independent Iraq that could stand up to Western influence and assert its dominance in the region. He believed in using absolute power and fear to maintain control. His speeches were often filled with fiery rhetoric and grandiose promises, but behind the scenes, he relied on a network of loyalists and secret police to enforce his rule. Anyone who dared to challenge him faced severe consequences. Brutal suppression of opposition was his hallmark. Political opponents, real or perceived, were arrested, tortured, and often executed. The regime used fear as a tool to keep the population in check, and public executions were not uncommon. The message was clear: dissent would not be tolerated. Saddam saw himself as a defender of Iraq's sovereignty and glory. He often spoke of Iraq's rich history and its role as a leader in the Arab world. He used nationalism as a means to rally support and justify his actions, portraying himself as the guardian of the nation's honor. He sought to elevate the nation's status on the international stage, often at any cost. His foreign policy was aggressive and confrontational, aimed at asserting Iraq's power and influence. He engaged in numerous conflicts and sought to position Iraq as a regional superpower. But his reign was marked by atrocities. The human cost of his rule was staggering. Entire villages were destroyed, and mass graves were discovered, filled with the bodies of those who had opposed him or were deemed a threat to his regime. The suffering of the Iraqi people was immense. From 1980 to 1988, he waged the Iran-Iraq War, resulting in approximately 1 million deaths. The war was one of the longest and most devastating conflicts of the 20th century. It drained Iraq's resources and left a lasting impact on the region. Saddam's decision to invade Iran was driven by a desire to assert dominance and control over the Persian Gulf. Saddam was responsible for the massacre of the Kurdish people using chemical weapons during the Anfal campaign. This campaign, which took place in the late 1980s, was aimed at crushing Kurdish resistance in northern Iraq. The use of chemical weapons against civilian populations was a horrific act that shocked the world and highlighted the brutality of Saddam's regime. In 1990, he invaded Kuwait, leading to the Gulf War. The invasion was a bold and reckless move that brought international condemnation and a swift military response from a coalition of countries led by the United States. The war resulted in significant destruction and further isolated Iraq on the global stage. Political repression, torture, and executions were common under his regime. The regime's security apparatus was notorious for its brutality. Torture chambers and secret prisons were used to extract confessions and instill fear. Public executions served as a grim reminder of the consequences of defying Saddam's rule. Millions of Iraqis and citizens of neighboring countries suffered under his rule. The wars, sanctions, and internal repression led to widespread suffering and displacement. Refugees fled the country in search of safety, and those who remained faced a harsh and uncertain existence. Saddam Hussein's legacy is one of brutality and fear. His downfall came in 2003 when a US-led coalition invaded Iraq, toppling his regime. He was captured, tried, and eventually executed for his crimes. The images of his statue being toppled and his trial marked the end of an era of terror. Like and subscribe to learn more about the famous villains in human history. Saddam Hussein's story is a stark reminder of the dangers of absolute power and the devastating impact it can have on a nation and its people. Join us as we continue to explore the lives and legacies of history's most infamous figures.